In 2026, the words football and fan are basically code words for product and customer. For the last decade plus, the digital revolution offered a counter-narrative of fans seizing the power to manufacture and sell their own content, bypassing the gatekeepers of legacy media. But now that the mainstream media is becoming integrated into online media, they're looking to control the last institution that they don't: blokes who chat about football in their bedroom. You see, YouTube is currently going through a huge shift where some of the biggest and most influential channels in the world are being bought up by private equity. So with the billions of views that are being generated organically by independent creators within the football space, the corporate suits of football are trying to seize the opportunity to build a hybrid of media that could swallow the creator economy and ultimately independent football media as we know it. So how has the sale of Mark Goldbridge's YouTube channels for £3.5 million to the overlap become an inspirational sellout, but also mark the end of the Wild West of independent fan channels? But first, if you didn't know, I make weekly documentary videos here on this channel, and it would be awesome if you could drop a like and a sub to the channel so we can keep on pumping out these videos. And if you can't get enough of me, make sure to follow me over on Spotify so you can watch and listen to all of my videos on the go. Anyway, with all of that nonsense, let's get back into the video. Now, before we explore how any of this is going to affect the football media world, we need to understand the wider context of why this is happening. You see, when you start a YouTube channel, it often begins as a project with one person doing everything. However, the more success you find, you have to become a legitimate business and scale up if you want to take the channel to the next level. You can do this in a number of different ways. You could stay independent and self-funded, get a traditional bank loan, or you could take on investment. Now, investments or buyouts for a channel are often very tempting because it offers the owner a way to cash out and secure them financially and not have to worry about the business operations while still having an influence on the content. It really depends on the deal. Some claim to remain editorially independent, some just aren't. Unlike the failed multi-channel networks you used to see YouTubers be a part of in 2014, these firms actually take ownership. To an investor, a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers is a digital toll booth. They have predictable revenue and sponsorship streams, they have libraries of videos that generate views for years, and they can absorb them into their media ecosystem. However, for a lot of these channels, once they get bought out, the primary focus shifts from creative expression to return on investment. This often means more frequent uploads and more aggressive mid-roll ad placements. To de-risk the asset as a whole, these companies will often introduce multiple hosts or producers, which ensures the channel survives even if the original creator leaves. But it often dilutes the soul of the content. Huge channels like Veritasium, Donut, Blippi, and Cocomelon all face this fate. So when it was announced that Mark Goldbridge had sold his channels for millions to members of legacy media, despite previously seeing them as competition, it raised questions about what all of this means for football media and how this will change the football creator space forever. On the 15th of April 2026, it was announced that Mark Goldbridge's YouTube channels, The United Stand and That's Football, had been acquired by Gary Neville's media venture, The Overlap, for £3.5 million. While the headlines suggest that Gary was behind the takeover, the true muscle behind the deal is Global, which is one of Europe's largest media conglomerates that owns stuff like Capital and LBC. In January 2026, Global acquired a majority stake in The Overlap, providing the massive capital needed to build a quote, multi-format sports media network. In 2021, The Overlap essentially took what a lot of online football creators were doing in the space and applied it to their own online format, but instead with influential people within the game. This has ultimately led to legacy media regaining a much firmer grip on the space, and has made it a lot harder for independent creators to compete. So for Goldbridge, who is at the very top of the game within the online space, the deal is life-changing and would be stupid not to take it, especially with a $500k annual salary to remain the face of the channels. To some, it's easy to label it as a sellout, but he's achieved every creator's dream of securing financial security for your family while continuing to pursue your passion. People just don't want others to do well. Calling Mark Goldbridge a sellout is pure jealousy. £3.5 million up front, plus $500k a year to stay face of the United Stand. Why wouldn't he take that? You get to secure your family and continue your passion. Isn't that a man's ultimate dream? Upon the news that Neville and The Overlap would be buying Mark's channel, Gary stated, "We are building what we believe will become one of the most exciting independent football communities in the world. One that gives fans direct personality-led content. The United Stand and That's Football are two of the best known football channels channels on YouTube, and our intention is to develop them into the most compelling Manchester United and football news channels in the market. Now, a lot of people found this wholesale between Neville and Goldbridge as quite ironic, as Gary had previously slated Mark's content and even refused to have Goldbridge as a guest on the overlap. The following day, Mark released a video responding to the news that his channels had been bought out by the overlap and explained what it all means for his future.
This channel will never ever be the same, and this will be my only interview about this because I'm not interested in doing press releases or anything like that. The only people that have put me in this position is you, and the only people who have put the United Stand in this position is you, and that's football. And the only people I'm interested in speaking to is the people who are you, the community of this channel, new or old. So what I would say first and foremost is I'm not leaving. If anything, this deal we've done pretty much confirms that I'll be here for a few more years yet, at least 5, hopefully 10. So, you know, I've always gone sort of every couple of years and wanted to reassess things. So whether that's good or bad news, that's one thing I would say straight away. Look, I'll get into the depth of this, but ultimately we are doing a deal with the Overlap Network. The United Stand and That's Football are joining the Overlap Network. That's not me then doing a deal at 10 o'clock last night. This has been worked on for months. So all the things I've said about ex-players, the club, in the last few weeks, in the last few days, in the last few months, that's been going on whilst this deal's been worked on. So the change in content that people think is going to happen is hilarious. This is about the next stage. You don't know what's agreed as part of this. You don't know what other things are happening. And all I would say is it's really exciting. It's a game changer. And I think that I've spent 10 years building this community with you. Some of you will be new today. Some of you will have been with us for years. And over those 10 years, so many people have been involved in it. But ultimately, I will only ever make, it's not about the finance. It's not about money. The things I've turned down over the years, we spoke to a number of people, which I'll get into in a moment. So this is about excitement. This is about what's best for the community. And this has been, for me, over the last few months, about putting myself in my staff's point of view, my community's point of view, and going, which would they pick? And every single time it was this, because the opportunity to do the things that we're going to do, I couldn't be selfish and say, let's just carry on doing what we're doing. The opportunities and things that we're going to do takes what show on an 8 o'clock once a week on a Sunday with 20 people watching to where it is today is incredible. And it's so exciting. How did it happen? So I think for the last 4 years, I felt that there has been a issue with wanting to be the best community creatively, but also running a business and also looking into the next few years, which I have always felt there is a certain way to go, which I'll talk about in a minute. So basically, we were looking for expansion. We were looking for a partner to take this whole thing forward. And at the same time, the Overlap were basically doing the same thing and looking to invest in general sports content platforms. This partnership with the Overlap means I and we can take everything we built and make it bigger, better and more ambitious than I ever could have done on my own. I think that, you know, being the first content creator to have a primetime slot on national radio was opening a door. Getting Bundesliga rights was opening a door. And in this industry, there are a lot of other fan content creators out there who, whether they want to acknowledge it or not, I think we all know it's a fact, they pretty much do and walk through the door that we have opened. And I just want to keep opening doors. That's my motivation. You know, when you get that radio show, when you get Bundesliga rights and you walk through the door with us, that's something nobody else has done before. And I've always, and if you watch the shows, I've always said, I've always known where I want to go. I've always known where I want to take this community. I want this community to be mixing it up at the very top of football.
Hilariously, the following day after the announcement was made, Mark just so happened to mention that Gary Neville was the best Premier League right back in history.
Who's the best right back in Premier League history, says Peter. Well, it's obviously Gary Neville. I mean, no hesitation. Next question.
A few years ago, Mark actually spoke about his desire to be shoulder to shoulder with the big boys during a podcast with Lawrence McKenna. He insinuated that investment or takeover would be the logical next move for his empire and also address the state of football creators.
But I mean, as I said, I'd say for the last 2 years, I've not really been happy. I love the content. The content is king. I love the content. And I don't think I could walk away. You know, I have thought about walking away, not because of
didn't think about walking away on Sunday. That makes me go, I'm not walking away. Like my wife will say, maybe it's time, and I'll go, I'm not walking away on I'm not being bullied out of it. I think the reason I'm unhappy about it is because I'm probably sort of hitting so many ceilings. Like, I don't want to run a business. I don't want to run a business, and I do run a business. I want to do things I get blocked off from doing. Like, talk sport's been a massive frustration for me because what I signed up to do, I've not been able to do. Yeah, it's been a frustration, considering that was a crossover to have your own radio show. I think there was so much more that could have been done. And in general, I think the mainstream media still has a massive grip on football, and it's a blocker. There's people within what we do who are blockers, and I'd love to break those things down. I'd love to do more creative content. I've had ideas for years that we've discussed as well. I look at the future of it and I go, well, look, I can keep doing this for 5 years. Do I want to do it for 5 years? I find it hard to stop, but I also find it hard to look at the next 5 years being the same as the last 5 years.
Sure.
So I don't know what my future is in it. I'm always looking for talent. I think that's a really, I'd love to do that producer thing. I mean, I think some of us know so much and can offer so much, and it annoys me a little bit that people think that I'm the narcissist who just wants myself on camera. If anyone's worked with me, even the people who left, if they were honest, would say he was always trying to find a week off for himself so that other people could step up. We just never got there. You seem to build people to a certain level and they go off, and that's a dangerous thing, and everyone's got that. AFTV's got it, you had it with the kickoff.
It's hard to...
The closer they get to being the solution, the more likely they are to go, I want my own thing.
And that's where, I think a lot of people don't understand with the overlap and things like that. The overlap is like a very considered business model where those guys are going for investment and these kind of things. And that's really smart. But I wish there would be more people who would look, I hope that there will be more people who look at what they do and go, well, if they did that, could we invest in Mark Goldbridge or something else?
I think with the United stand, and I probably shouldn't be saying this on camera, but honestly, you know what? I think some sort of 50-50 investment strategy to take it to that next level.
Yeah, a split of sorts.
Would take a lot of the responsibility for running it off me to allow me to be creative, but also bring a load of ideas and to take it I know where it can go. I cannot be two people. There was a robot of Goldbridge who could present the shows. I just become a producer, or the other way around. That's the ideal, and I think it can only really be achieved by some sort of investment or merger, or I think that's potentially the future. What's the future of the space is intriguing. I'm very interested in, there are still some big hitters that could make I'm still looking for talent to come in, which I think that's really difficult. I mean, it's still really interesting to me that the vast majority of talent has been around for coming up a decade.
Yep.
And the talent that's coming through really is a bit pigeonholed in the sense that they're all doing the same sort of thing. I think there's some interesting people out there, but I don't think they've got, it's almost like the Everton interesting. I can't see a Liverpool coming through at the moment. And I think that's really interesting as well. But I would love to get back to where I think it was heading probably 3 or 4 years ago, pre-COVID, where I think we were going to take the mainstream on properly. And I think what's happened in the last 12 months, and I have to doff my hat to things like The Overlap and even Gary Lineker's podcast to a certain extent, is that they've capitalised on everything we were doing well and incorporated it into the I've played the game arena, which we were defeating. And look, I think it's only half time. I think there is a second half. If I was predicting it, it really depends on whether people are going to be open enough to have conversations, because we're stronger together and we're weaker apart. And at the moment, I still think people are funneling off in their own little things.
In the same year, Paul Mackin, who is one of the founders of Redmen TV, a Liverpool fan channel, also spoke in an interview about how the overlap was going to make it a lot harder for independent creators to survive now that legacy media had entered the conversation.
Bigger brands have cottoned onto it, because that's what happens to every platform, is that it's a platform for the people, because a younger person's platform, they get ahead of time, and then brands see value in it, and then they start to flood it with dough. It's Bayern Munich syndrome, is that you can get it, you can go in the Bundesliga and you can do coaching and smart tactics and being ahead of the curve, having new fresh ideas, you can go and win the Bundesliga. But Bayern Munich will just go, what did they do? Right, let's go and buy what they've got, and they'll either buy your best players, they'll buy your coaches, or they'll just buy someone who can copy all your techniques but put more spend behind it, and they will go back to the top eventually. And that's what's happening now. So we were ahead of the curve, but that's what we need to fight against now, and I think it's going to be smaller people are going to have to be bigger and more controversial to get more eyes on what they do. I think people who got in the door at a certain time will continue to be okay, reasonable institutions. So our mission is to make it. Do we want Red Men and Arsenal Fan TV and Toffee TV and West Ham Fan TV and United Stand to be institutions that go on beyond us, and can we make that transition? And then it's how much of the pie do the big brands and the corporations eat up.
Now, one of these institutions within the space is AFTV's Robbie Lyle, who hasn't been bought out like Mark, but has taken investment, which ultimately means they remain independent and still post any content they want, but just take a percentage cut of their YouTube revenue over a contracted period of time. This is likely due so Robbie can build out the infrastructure necessary to compete with the big corporations. In recent interviews, Robbie has spoken about how much harder the football content creation space has become now that there is so much competition from the big boys, and how they are now relying on independent creators to leverage their own content.
Proof is in the pudding. When you see a lot of people now all of a sudden doing the same things that you do, that's a validation there. Don't have to, you know what I mean? You just have to look sometimes and you can see certain platforms that used to cuss us now doing what we do now, doing YouTube. What did you got? But you don't make a noise about it. You just secretly inside you laugh and say, oh, that's one of the things that I'm proud of, that we're one of the people that have helped to give some of these voices a platform. But they never used to get a look in on some of those legacy media. They never give some of these guys a chance. Some of these legacy media platforms now are giving these guys a chance because they've got no choice. They have to. Because if they don't, they'll go on other platforms and we'll see them there, and then we'll watch them there instead of on you.
We're not competing anymore with just ourselves in terms of YouTubers going up against each other. Okay, it's friendly competition. You're actually competing. I saw the overlap, the watch along. I said, my numbers are dropping. I said, I need to get my studio looking right.
You're up against... You're up against everybody. When I first started doing like AFTV, there was like a couple men doing content. Now if there's a watch along, there's about 500 to 1,000 people doing a watch along. It's competition, bro. So you got to adapt to it, because the minute you start thinking you're too big, the minute you start thinking your company's too big, that's when you lose it.
Now, as I said earlier, there is a lot of different ways to navigate a YouTube business. Another prominent creator within the space, Ellis Platten, sold his channel Away Days to football shirt retailer Classic Football Shirts. This company was then bought out by American private equity firm The Churning Group in 2024, alongside Wrexham owner Rob McElhenney and women's football star Alex Morgan. In recent interviews, Ellis explains why selling his channel was the ideal move for him as a creator.
Away Days was a business, so I ran it as a business. I was paid as an employee. My relationship with them has been so close for years now that they were like, okay, because they got acquired by a company in the US, and they were like, you don't have YouTube presence, and they were like, okay, well we have a relationship with Ellis, and then let's discuss it. We went back and forth for like 8 to 10 months of doing that, and then finally they acquired the YouTube channel. So now I'm an employee of an Away Days. I'm an employee of Away Days that's owned by Classic Football Shirts.
Can you ever leave?
Yeah, I can leave, but like I don't. Why would I?
It's your baby. It's still your baby, no matter who owns it.
And like I still like it's still mine. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's still incentives in there that I want to do, and like I am Away Days. Like if I leave Away Days, who's Away Days? Like what is it?
Ben and Alfie.
Yeah, but if I leave, they leave. So it's like
it's a package deal.
Yeah, it's literally a package deal.
It's a package deal.
So what happens? I think like it was like I said, like I'm not from anything, so like I was securing a future for myself, and like also making sure I still had like a financial incentive to be involved in the channel as well. I just think like it was the way you could take it to the next level, like hiring staff, being able to keep the soul of it, and like I knew they'd have the best intentions for it at heart. So I wouldn't have sold it to anyone else. It's not like I've taken like, it was already a brand I worked with all the time anyway.
Yeah,
I think the deal made a lot of sense to do.
There's a lot of natural synergy there, isn't there? I know what you mean, like with brand deals, because you love your shirts, you're filming in their store, interviewing people anyway. It's a lot of natural synergy there for your audience that wouldn't go, what's happened here? It's probably, I imagine, win-win for both of you.
Yeah, exactly. And I already felt like I was a part of it anyway. Like I think the guys, the main guys there probably saw that as well. Like I already feels like I'm a part of it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, it would just made the most sense to do. And I felt like it was the right time. The offer felt right. It might be a few years time where I regret it or they regret it. I don't know. I hope not. Yeah, so I don't own any of the channel, but I still have like a percentage of the profits of the channel still come to me, which is like, without that, I think it's really important. I think that was important in terms of like keeping me interested, basically. Yeah.
So in Ellis's case, it's awesome because there's a lot of synergy between him as a creative and Classic classic football shirts, which means from a consumer point of view it makes sense and it's not jarring. But this can't be said for the flip side of this, with legacy media integrating influencers. Traditional consumers feel alienated because of such a heavy push to include influencers and internet culture rather than the traditional format, which I think is pretty fair because a lot of people pay a lot of money to Rupert Murdoch's sports package, TNT and all of the other streaming services to arguably get a worse product than years gone by. In other words, the game's gone. A perfect example of this is Arsenal fan and influencer Matt Pincus, who was given the opportunity to speak on a pre-match build-up and then welcome Arsenal players into the stadium and hype them up. Now, hilariously, Arsenal went on to lose against Bournemouth and it created a firestorm of discussion and controversy on social media. But this was actually the best case scenario for TNT, as it gets more eyeballs on their product. Whether good or bad, it doesn't really matter, because it did exactly what they brought him in to do, generate engagement. Now, this isn't going anywhere either, and once again, it's partly thanks to Gary Neville. You see, he, alongside comedian Michael McIntyre, co-founded a company called Fanalysis, which is essentially a quote, fan-led data platform designed to bridge the gap between supporters shouting at their TVs and professional pundits in their studio. It's essentially a way for fans to act as amateur scouts or pundits for their own team. Instead of just arguing on Twitter, fans can actually submit data.
Sky Sports News using fans as their pundits on their daily shows. They're asking, why are they using these instead of journalists? Why are we being forced opinions from these people who clearly know nothing? Well, I can tell you why. These fan pundits all work for a company called Fanalysis. They aim to be the Rotten Tomatoes or TripAdvisor for football, and the ownership model for this company, well, it's intriguing to say the least. As you can see here, this idea came from a man called Lucas McIntyre, the co-founder of Fanalysis, but he wasn't able to put the money in to invest it all himself, so who did he ask for help from? That's right, his father, Michael McIntyre, comedian and massive Spurs fan. Lucas went to Michael with the idea for Fanalysis, and Michael thought, well, I think we're going to have to get some bigwigs in the world of football to invest in this, so who should we go for? Didn't take long for me to look around in LinkedIn to find this on Gary Neville's LinkedIn page. Just under a year ago, I walked into a hotel lobby to have a meeting with Michael McIntyre. Who'd have thought after that meeting we'd be launching Fanalysis? And what's the idea of this? It's an app where basically fans can rate their own players. It seems a bit odd, but Sky Sports have also invested in it, and that's why every day now on Sky Sports News you will see these fans talking about their team rather than journalists. And guess what? They don't pay any of these fans either, so it's a really good win for Sky.
So now that the Fanalysis app is in partnership with Sky Sports, not only does it allow them to have full control of the narrative around fan opinion, but it also allows them to harvest data that was previously invisible to legacy broadcasters. For years, they had to guess what fans thought. Now they own the data that proves it, which they can then sell or use for betting integration. By integrating Fanalysis into the Sky Sports ecosystem, the big boys can effectively monetize fan passion twice. First through engagement on the screen, and second by turning fan sentiment into a quantifiable product. It creates a loop where the creator gets access to high-profile industry figures and lucrative sponsorships, while the legacy media or betting companies gain a direct pipeline to the most engaged audiences. It's a win-win for the balance sheets, but it signals an end of an era for where fans spoke just to be heard. Now, they just speak for clips to maneuver their way through the industry. Instead of legacy media trying to build their own authentic channels from scratch, which often fails, it's far more efficient for them to simply sponsor or acquire creators who have already done the hard work of building the community. We are now seeing this with Sky Sports and Super 6, who now create content directly with established creators rather than competing with them. So what does this all mean? Well, for the originators and pioneers of fan football channels, they're probably going to be fine as they're institutions at this point. But in every aspect, big media companies want a bigger slice of the pie, swallowing up more of the market. Essentially, the wild west of fans creating their own content that can compete numbers-wise and production-wise with the high profiles of the game is only going to get harder and harder as the gap closes. But with the Mark Goldbridge sale being one of the most high-profile deals the industry has ever seen, only time will tell to see how a deal like this unfolds for the space. Well, if you've made it this far, I really do appreciate you watching. If you're new here, make sure to drop a like and a sub to the channel, follow me on Instagram at Phat, and comment below what you want to see next. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.